awesome job.
I believe it. I believe it. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about Robin and Nightwing, a lot. But I have a lot of respect for anyone who spends a lot of time in the trenches of daytime TV. Not that this is about me, it's about you. But many years and lives ago, I did a day on One Life to Live, and it was not easy. It's quick
in New York. It was in New York?
In New York,
Wow.
yeah. So super fast line memorization. You learn the blocking. In my weird situation, I had fight choreography. It was a weird day. So, but I walked away thinking, like, man, anyone who can do this. So tell me about that experience.
And the way they can turn on the waterworks, in a second, because like they can cry and they have to do it over and over again. And can everybody hear me, by the way? Good. Okay. So yeah, I actually did 3 different soap operas. I did General Hospital, Bold and the Beautiful, and Young and the Restless. And Bold and the Beautiful, I had such a nice time that I became hooked on the show, and I actually have watched every episode over the last 6 years. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
So,
do you prefer the Bold or the Beautiful?
They're both pretty good, but the Beautiful is kind of,
hard not to.
Hard not to, yeah.
Cool. How long were you doing them, and was it in fact this really quick? I mean, I just remember seeing people walking around with scripts like this, knowing this was the next day.
Remember though, the scripts like this are multiple episodes.
Wow.
So very often you're doing 2 episodes in a day, or 2 scenes from 2 different episodes in a day. And on General Hospital, that was the longest recurring character I had. I was the accountant to the mob boss, Sonny. And I didn't get killed, but they left it open for me to come back. But that's been a while. I don't think I'm coming back.
No.
That's often how it works on stuff. I was going to say, I didn't get killed either, Lauren, and yet here we are. So let's talk about your adventures in Gotham City.
Yes.
I know that when you're working on a new show, the cast and crew are never really able to predict what the reception is going to be. And I'm sure that people ask you all the time, like, did you guys have any idea that it was going to be so popular? But in the case of Batman, the animated series, you definitely had as stacked a deck as one could hope for before releasing a project, because of course by the time the show debuted in 92, Batman Fever was still pretty high, right? Batman Returns had just come out 3 months earlier, and Batman, of course, was still a huge character in comics, largely because Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns was only a few years old at that point. So, which is my extremely long-winded way of asking you if you were ever aware of anyone on the production side thinking, this is pretty hot. If we made a cartoon right now, this is going to be a slam dunk.
Well, I think they thought it would be successful, but did they think that 30 years later we'd be talking about it? Nobody thought that.
I'm sure.
And it's really came as a wonderful surprise to everybody that it became such an icon. And when we saw the show on the air for the first time, the music, the look, we already knew the writing was different, but the music and the look of the show was drawn on black paper. It was really something special. We said, wow, this is going to be a great show. Had no idea it was going to have the kind of longevity that it's had. No way.
Sure. What point did it dawn on you, even as an audience member of the show, or as a member just of the pop culture in general? Hey, this project is special, and people really seem to be embracing it. Did someone come up to you? Did you get messages? Was there anything like, hey, I saw your show, and apparently so did millions of people?
Well, what happened was, at that time, people didn't watch things at will. They didn't watch it whenever they wanted it. They had to watch it at 3:30 after school.
What's that like?
I know,
That's weird.
crazy. Yeah. So people would run home from school, and people come up to me and still talk about this to this day, about how important it was that this was something they could count on every single day. They would come home after school and watch the show.
Yeah.
So it was on every single day, and we knew we were getting a big following. I honestly, we have a bigger following now than we've ever had because those people all had children. So now there's 2 generations of people who watch the show. So no, I don't think the show has ever been bigger than it is right now, to be honest with you.
Well, and it's hard not to argue with that also when the show introduces, these tiny little throwaway characters like Harley Quinn, who now is obviously massive. Show of hands, how many Harley Quinns have you seen today walking around? 3, 4, more than 20? Sure.
And speaking of Harley Quinn, I don't want to take your job. Go ahead.
Sure, go ahead.
No.
She's right here. What do you feel is the reason that the show is so successful with critics and fans that we're sitting here 20? I mean, you're touching on some of these things, of course, but is there anything that you look at it and think?
I think the reason people love the really successful comic books because the ones that are really successful have a lot of humanity. The characters are complicated. They're not just good versus evil. I mean, there is the issue of good versus evil, but the heroes are all complicated people, and I think they captured that in that show. I mean, you got to remember at that time, what did you have? You had the Smurfs and the Ninja Turtles, and I guess those were the shows. I'm not putting those down. I'm just saying that those weren't very complicated. This was a show with comic book kind of complicated people. And I think that really rang true. And especially, the relationship between Batman and Robin, it really is pretty tense. They really explored that whole thing where, Dick became Nightwing and went off on his own and punched Batman. I don't know if you remember that moment, but that was really, quite an iconic moment.
A reenactment in the house. Yep.
What happened?
It did happen. A punch was thrown. A slow motion punch was thrown. He was smiling, so it was a little bit different.
Yeah, I hope Kevin's not around.
I love that you brought up, and I think it's worth repeating because every time it's a fact that I stumble over, it amazes me that, of course, the show is very moody and lots of shadows, very cinematic, very film noir aesthetic, but that they literally started with black paper.
Yes.
Yeah, when animating, which, boy, you wouldn't think that something so subtle, so small like that, but it just helps set the mood in such an amazing way.
And they also started with the concept that they wanted to make it as much as a cinematic experience as possible. That was Bruce Timm's, I know, one of his definite goals was to make it like you're watching a movie, not like you're watching a cartoon.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the people involved with that since we're celebrating 25 years on of Batman the Animated Series. Absolutely, the announcement happened. It's absolutely worth mentioning some of those genius talents who helped create this iconic piece of Batman and Robin legacy. And if you've got any stories about them or just what they were like and what the mood was at the time, let's start with the writer, the producer, the editor, Paul Dini, who is often the name that is often associated with this show.
Well, Paul and Bruce are both very, very quiet people. They're very... I'm sorry, that's an announcement I have to my experience with them was always they were very, very quiet, almost kind of bashful, kind of people. Mm-hmm. Like what you'd expect, comic book people to be like, honestly. Yeah. And I did a movie with Wes Craven, and I found him to be very quiet too, very, very quiet. He knew what he wanted though. See, Paul and Bruce and Wes Craven, they all very much know what they want, and they're able to express that, but in a very quiet way.
Yeah. Let's talk about also the composer. I know that there were a lot of composers on the show, but Shirley Walker is a name that jumps out to me. So if the show began with the really famous Danny Elfman theme and then sort of went from there, her music is amazing. We're going to try that one.
Let's see better.
She captured the style so well of that show. I don't know if you guys ever had any communication with her.
No. In fact, I had no interaction with a lot of the behind-the-scenes people. Mm-hmm.
I know someone that you had some communication with, though, is Andrea Romano.
Oh, yes.
Casting and the voice director of the show.
Yes.
So tell me about, she cast it initially, but then she was involved throughout, right? Did she?
Yes, she directed every single episode.
Okay.
Yeah, she was there for it. And the casting, I think, was kind of like a group effort. I think Alan Burnett, Warner Brothers, and a bunch of people were involved in that. But she directed every single episode of the show. So when you hear directed by, there's two different directors, really. There's the director who does the visuals, and then there's the director who does the voice, and she did the voice direction on all of the shows.
Wow.
And she continued not only on the initial Batman animated series, but then what it became, and like every iteration. I mean, I feel like I've seen. She, I think, was just at a show in Denver like a week or two ago and did some big Justice League panel, and there she was, still directing, like front and center, bringing out the whole cast.
And not just that, but she directed a bunch of other shows. I worked with her on Sylvester and Tweety, so she's done a lot of other things too.
Yeah. So let's talk about the rest of the incredible voice cast on the show. I know that often, even on the road, you're sitting next to Kevin Conroy. I know Kevin Conroy, but he seems like he's a fun guy, and you clearly have a pretty good rapport together.
Yes, we've been seeing each other a lot more than we have in many years because, I guess because it's the 25th anniversary, there's been a lot more Comic-Cons that want both of us there. So I've seen a lot more of him. It's funny, over the years I've gotten, fan mail, and they'll send me something, and they'll say, can you sign this, and can you get Kevin to sign it too? And, it might have been years maybe before I'd seen Kevin. It's like, they think we really are in the Batcave
Clearly, he's right next to you.
Yeah. Right. So, but this year in particular, I see him every few weeks, so it's great.
Talk to me about Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. Alfred.
He's wonderful. First of all, here's a guy that I grew up with on a lot of TV shows that you're all too young to remember, but a show called FBI and many other shows. And he goes back, I think, to the late 40s. He started in the movies, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, the first thing he says, it's like, oh my God, and I'm geeking out, because I'm meeting this guy. And the first thing he says, hello, lad. Call me Effie. That was it. Broke the ice, and from then on he was Effie, and we were just pals. It was very nice.
That's excellent. And of course, you had a huge amount of other super notable guest stars.
Yes.
Just because I feel like I'm contractually obligated to drop the name Mark Hamill, I will say Mark Hamill is the Joker.
Yes, indeed.
Which is an incredible turn. But man, there were so many others that came through there as well. So tell me about recording with them. Initially, were you all recording together?
All
like
together.
Radio play style?
All together. And that's something that doesn't happen anymore, unfortunately. But that